best-selling psychiatrist, best-selling author and psychiatrist, Dr. Lea Lis is going to be with us to tell us how, in fact, you can have love in the time. Love in the time of cholera. I think that was an old book of some sort. Love in the time of cholera. Love in the time of COVID. That's coming up next.
WOR. Here's Len Berman and Michael Riedel in the morning.
All right, so this pandemic, COVID, has put a lot of stresses on our lives, certainly economically, sadly for people who've been furloughed or who have lost their jobs. A lot of stresses with kids learning from home, and you don't even know if the kids can go back to school, if they go back to school, if there's an outbreak and they have to come home again. But another stress it puts on us is our relationships. Now, I got to say, Noam, it's bad enough having to have dinner on Friday with your spouse, but since this COVID thing happened, you have to have dinner practically every night with your spouse.
7 nights a week,
That could really ruin a marriage or a relationship or something like that. And if you're single, how can you find love? Well, it was Love in the Time of Cholera, famous book there, but Love in the Time of COVID. Is that possible? In point of fact, I know someone who has found love in the time of COVID, but we wanted to check in with Dr. Lea Lis. She's the best-selling author and psychiatrist, and she has given a lot of thought to how we keep our relationships going when, good morning, doctor. How do we keep these relationships? How do we keep these relationships going when we don't have space? We can't get away from each other. We've all been cooped up together since March.
Yeah, the pandemic has resulted in a make or break relationship. There's a baby boom, a bunch of babies going to be born in January, and the divorce rate is up to 34% from the start of the pandemic. So, we're either crumbling or we're doing great and having babies. And there's just a lot of intense time together.
So what would be some advice you would have for couples who, let's say that, they had a happy relationship. They still probably have a happy relationship, but it's been strained because they've been on top of each other for the last 6 months.
Yeah, a lot of people are shutting down and they're becoming very passive-aggressive, and that's so toxic as getting angry. I like to think about using positive reinforcement to get what you want. So, if your spouse picks up a glass and puts it in the thing, you could say, "Oh my God, thank you so much for doing the dishes," even if they weren't planning to do them all. Just being like, "Thank you so much. You're going to do the dishes. That's so great. It helps me out so much." They're more likely to finish the dishes rather than whining about, "Can't you just do all the dishes?" And I think that, changing that to a positive framework is really helpful. And the Harvard nurses studies tell us we can't get all we need from our partners. Men benefit way more from marriage than women. And single women live longer and happier lives. But women who have close friendships, even when they're married, are happier and live longer. So you got to seek out what's missing from others.
My kids always point out that my life hasn't really changed a whole lot because of COVID. I'm still coming to work. I still come home. I'm leading pretty boring life like usual. But theirs, of course, has drastically changed. And they always say, you're only as happy as your most unhappy kid. And I have two kids who are kind of pretty unhappy.
Yeah, there's a study on lonely pandemic girls. Depression and loneliness is up 70% in girls. Girls are hardwired to be social. Anyone who has a teenage girl knows this. They light up like a Christmas tree when their friend calls or they go out with their friends. And, without that face-to-face interaction, the pheromones exchange, the hugs, the, constant, eye contact, they're faltering. So we really have to do our best as a family to mitigate mental health concerns with safety concerns. I really like the idea of forming COVID pods where, you really think about another family that you can, sequester with that you believe is staying safe. And if you just see each other all the time, your risks go way down because, the more people you bring in, the more risks there are. So you got to really weigh those risks and benefits with who's in your family, like elderly and things like that. So I think that's something to think about. And I talk more about the importance of healthy relationships in my book, No Shame.
Now, what about people who were single before the pandemic took hold? Single and maybe a little bit lonely and, trying to date, going on all those dating apps and this kind of thing. Those people must really be in a sad state because they haven't been able to date very much at all.
That's true. But, with every cloud, there's a silver lining. And, this is the era of online dating. So, get out there, improve your pictures, lose some weight, take the best, get great lighting at sunset and get yourself out there online. And then, you can screen these people instead of having to meet them in person and deal with their bad breath or whatever. You can screen them online and say, do you want to take the chance? and meet them. And if you're willing to take the chance and you think they're being safe, you probably means you have a real connection. And I'm a big believer in the taxi light theory on dating. Like, you know, people aren't ready, and then all of a sudden their taxi light goes on and they're ready. And whoever next gets in the taxi is the one they're going to marry or the one they're going to form a partnership with. And people are tired of being alone. You know, they really want to find someone and to be in a committed relationship. They're even thinking about children, and they never did before. New York is not, you know, the best place for raising families a lot of times. So people are out all the time at movies, at, you know, events, and now they're home and they're like, gosh, wouldn't it be great to have that special someone? So, you know, this is a great time to like meet that someone who could be your life partner. So don't give up.
Yeah. Well, you know, I actually found, Dr. Lea, that my whole dating situation changed when I started using Brad Pitt's picture on my online profile.
You are a very good-looking man. That is for sure.
And I love your bit about, you know, with the taxi, when it's time for a romance and you feel it, look for the taxi. And this has given me a reason to moonlight as a taxi driver, because if somebody says taxi, I'll pick you right up. That's it. So, all right. I guess the most important thing, we got to run Dr. Lea Lis. She's the best-selling author and psychiatrist. I guess the most important thing, maybe, if I can just get to the bottom line here, is even when we're struggling in this unheard of catastrophe of the pandemic, it is important just to try to find things in life that make you smile.
Yes. And, you know, it's all about attitude and perspective. You can always look at the downside, and if you do, you'll be depressed. Or you can try to find the pearls, and listen, you'll be much happier in the long run.
Taxi. Okay, thank you, Dr. Lea Lis, best-selling author and psychiatrist. We appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Take care.